Supermini sales in Europe are falling, but it's still an important segment for some car makers. That's why Renault decided to give the Clio not just a cosmetic refresh, but also add a full hybrid powertrain as well as a factory LPG option. Is it worth an upgrade? Let's find out. LPG or autogas conversions are usually popular with older cars which are out of warranty. But some car makers, including Renault, offer their customers a factory solution with a warranty. You pay a little more upfront, but you get a brand new fuel-efficient car with a warranty. There aren't many full hybrids in the B segment. There's the Toyota Yaris and the Mazda 2 Hybrid, which is a badge-engineered Yaris, and then there's the Honda Jazz. However, Renault also sees the hybrid's potential. Before the facelift, the Clio was offered with a mild hybrid, but now Renault managed to pack a full hybrid in here, the kind we've seen in the Renault Arcana, for example. We're talking about a series parallel solution where the car is powered mainly by an electric motor. The internal combustion engine primarily acts as a generator. How does it work in practice? More on that in a moment. What else has changed besides the powertrains? At the front we have new headlights, now straight rather than C-shaped. The daytime running lights are now in the form of a column of horizontal lines on the sides under the headlights. There's a new bonnet, new grille, and a new version of the logo, which is now flat rather than three-dimensional. On the side, the main change is getting rid of the buttons on the door handles to unlock the car when not using the proximity sensor. They just couldn't help themselves, and they had to get rid of what was good. The rear is smoothed out, the tail lamps are now different, and the exhaust tips disappeared from the bumper. It is now hidden behind it. The exterior dimensions remained unchanged: 405 cm in length, 144 cm in height, and 180 cm in width. The wheelbase is still 258 cm. Also unchanged on paper and in reality is the boot capacity, which is officially 391 litres for non-hybrid versions and 300 litres in the hybrid version. I still have no idea how they came up with 391 litres in the pre-facelift model. Any way you measure it, it comes out to about 280. I'll add another 20 for the spare wheel well. Because of the hybrid drivetrain, you can't drop the boot floor. The autogas version kept the double floor, but it doesn't get a mini spare because that's where the LPG tank resides. By the way, the autogas filler is next to the petrol inlet under the flap. It requires screwing in an adapter, which was missing from the press car, so I don't have a cutaway showing it. Like before the facelift, we still have shopping bag hooks in the boot. There is still a high sill, there is still a convenient handle for closing the tailgate, and there is still a button to open the boot just above the registration plate in a place where dirt collects, especially on rainy days. The rear seat is cramped as it was, the door pockets are still small as well, there are still no air vents or USB ports, and there is no armrest or ski hatch. The backrest splits 40-60. The Clio may be a small city car, but it has 3 ISOFIX anchor points, 2 in the rear and 1 on the front passenger seat. Many car makers skip the front ISOFIX or charge extra for it, so kudos to Renault for being family friendly. There are no major changes in the cockpit, maybe except for the gauge cluster. The 7-inch digital display, which used to be optional on the pre-facelift model, is now standard, while higher trims get the 10.25-inch display. Autogas versions even display the LPG consumption here, but the switch and the LPG fuel gauge are still a flimsy button over the driver's left knee. Is it really that hard to reprogram the instrument cluster to show an extra fuel level reading like it does in the hybrid version? This being the Espirt Alpine trim, it gets some cloth on the dashboard. Other than that, it's the same as in the pre-facelift model, including buttons and knobs for AC and some basic car functions. We also get the same central display with a slightly modified infotainment interface system, but this is still one of the best, if not the best, infotainment systems in Superminis. You can add favorite shortcuts to the main screen. There are a lot of settings, but they're logically grouped. Everything is easy to access. The most important functions are dealt with via physical buttons. There's wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay with directions displayed on the gauge cluster. This is how you do it. Below, a phone cubby with a wireless charger, a 12-volt outlet and 2 USB-A ports. Small cup holders, a small storage compartment under the armrest. The glove box, on the other hand, is quite deep. The door pockets are just the right size. The seats, at least in the Espirt Alpine trim, have good lateral support. I wish there was lumbar support adjustment. As far as I recall, the pre-facelift model had seats mounted slightly higher, so I would bang my knee on where the two elements of the center console were joined. None of that here, fortunately. The powertrain range, depending on the market, may or may not include the least powerful 65 horsepower petrol version or a 100 horsepower diesel. Other engine choices include a 3-cylinder 90 horsepower petrol and a 100 horsepower petrol LPG, as well as the 145 horsepower E-Tech hybrid with a 1.6-liter petrol engine. The LPG model achieves full power on autogas and makes 90 horsepower on petrol alone. The claimed fuel economy should be around 7 liters per 100 kilometers combined. It's probably achievable during the summer, but I drove it in the winter with sub-zero temperatures and I got close to 9 liters. The full hybrid should use 4.3 liters per 100 kilometers combined. I managed to get below 6 liters, but there wasn't much potential for improvement, at least not in the winter when I'm recording. The 145 horsepower hybrid is not only the most fuel-efficient Clio, at least on paper, but also the quickest at 9.3 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. I got 9.4 seconds in sport mode, but on winter tires, so I think 9.3 is achievable on summer tires. Like in the hybrid Arcana, also in the Clio during acceleration runs there's a brief hesitation around 120 km per hour. Probably there is a handover from electric to internal combustion engine or something of that sort. You can feel it and you can hear it. You can also hear the engine noise when the engine acts as a generator. This is quite common in hybrids, which are pleasant to drive around town when the internal combustion engine has little to do. But on the motorway or under strong acceleration, it gets unpleasant. With that said, the pre-facelift Clio was also poorly soundproofed, so not much has changed in this department. On a more pleasant note, the hybrid Clio is able to take off from the lights in electric mode fairly swiftly, and the combustion engine kicks in around 50 km per hour if I don't let off the gas. Renault boasts a recalibrated steering system that is more precise and gives more feedback. Indeed, the pre-facelift version wasn't particularly communicative, and now I can feel this car really isn't suitable for more spirited driving. 6 out of 10 it'll pass, but at 8 out of 10 it feels like something I mentioned in Toyota hybrids. The chassis is tuned for more than the powertrain characteristics allow. Because of how the electric motor and petrol engine work together, it's hard to maintain balance in fast corners. You're never sure if the car will go into understeer or oversteer. Oh, and by the way, the multi-sense individual mode settings allow you to choose one of the 3 steering modes, and I recommend using dynamic. The suspension is decent and handles the extra weight well. The hybrid weighs more than 1,200 kilograms and is about 200 kilograms heavier than the petrol version and about 100 kilograms heavier than the LPG version. All powertrain versions can tow up to 900 kilograms. Visibility is average. Like in the pre-facelift model, visibility in the rearview mirror is limited by the falling roofline. You can't see cars further back. This can be dangerous on a highway when a vehicle is approaching at a much higher speed. The driver assistance systems work well enough, especially considering the segment, but the automatic parking feature is so clumsy you'd be better off taking extra driving lessons to learn how to park properly. I like how Renault displays distance from the car in front expressed in seconds. The faster you're driving, the bigger the distance you need to keep to maintain the same time from the car in front, and it sort of makes you realize how little time you have to react. Prices of the refreshed Renault Clio start at €18,350 for the 65 horsepower variant, €19,550 for the 90 horsepower petrol, and €20,350 for the LPG. The full hybrid will set you back at least €23,300. This is the Espirt Alpine E-Tech Hybrid for €26,700, plus options, which adds up to €29,150. Yes, you have to pay extra for the paint, the 360 camera, LED headlights, better audio system, heated steering wheel and heated seats, and that's how you arrive at $2,500 worth of options. The refreshed Renault Clio looks more interesting, but if you have the pre-facelift model, I don't think it's worth the upgrade. I wish there was an automatic option without the hybrid, which would make this a more attractive proposition for the city. And what do you think about the Renault Clio? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.